Om Mahyanatimarnasya Chanansalashanaka Shaksho Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namo Shri Chaitanyamanopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupkadamyam Dadati Svapadam Tikam Vandeham Shigo Shiyuda Padakamanam Shigo Vaishnavamsha Shri Upam Jagajatam Saganaragnatam Tam Tam Sativam Sadvaitam Savadottam Bhavjana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagalita Shivishakam Vitam Sham He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jyatpate Gopesha Kopkakanta Radhakanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhana Sutadevi Pranamama Haripriye Vancha Kalptabhasha Kripa Sinve Vasha Bhaktinam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Nama Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shanti Gaura Bhaktavan Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskatyai Dasatani. Today we will continue with chapter 15, Purushottam Yoga, the Yoga of the Supreme Person. And we heard in text 7 the good news that we are eternal part and parcels of Krishna. But now in verses 8, 9 and following, now Lord Krishna will give us the bad news that we are transmigrating from one body to another. And Krishna will explain that the materialistic can not see that. But one who is trained in transcendental knowledge, he can see what's going on. That to come out of this transmigration of birth and death, we must first know Krishna's position. That if we understand Krishna's position, then we can understand our position, which is different, and our relationship. First, we start with text 8. 8 and 9 are describing transmigration of the soul. And it gives some details of this transmigration. That at the end of the 4th canto, the last chapters there, that Narada Muni will explain King Prajnaparishat this process much more detailed, very scientific. But this is Bhagavad Gita gives like a summary, a hint of what's really going on. So now, text 8. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sariram yat avapnoti, yat shab ukramotishvara, Hitvaitani samyati, Vayu gandan evasayat. The living entity in the material world carries its different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus it takes one kind of body again, one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that we have some minute independence, that we decide with our consciousness what kind of body we will have. So minute independence. Srila Prabhupada writes, if we have made our conscience in that of a dog or a cat, yes, we will surely get the body of a cat or a dog. But if we come to Krishna consciousness, we will be transferred to the spiritual world and associate there with Krishna. We heard already in the 8th chapter, Yam Yam Vapi Swam Bhavan Tyant and Eva Kevalam. Yam Yam Vapi Tyant Yam. Yeah. Yam Yam Vapi Swam Bhavan Tyant Ante Kalevam. Tam Tam Eveti Kauntiyan Satadat Bhava Bhavita. What the consciousness you have cultivated during your life will be prevalent at the time of death, and that consciousness will determine your next body. Yeah. So that means that the activities we do in this life are the background of the next body. We are producing bodies. Unless we do Jachnachta Karmanuyata Lokoyam Karmabandhana, do everything as a sacrifice for Krishna, acting Krishna consciousness, we are creating bodies. We are creating bodies. Factory of making bodies. We do it. So, and all these conceptions of the consciousness that represent the consciousness we have created during our lives, they are stored in the subtle body. In the subtle body, our next body is already created in a subtle form. And in that subtle form of our next body is brought under supervision of the super soul to the womb, where through the semen of a father injected in the womb of a mother, suitable for producing that body. And that it's very scientific, very accurate what happens according to our consciousness. So that's the process of transmigrating from one body to another and struggling. And while we're in the body, Krishna has said in the previous verse, he said, Prakatistani Karsati. We are struggling with the mind and senses. That so much misery while in the body. That So in other words, we can look at the summary here. So the living entity can choose what kind of body will get in the next life and how he acts in by how he acts in this life. The subtle body carries him to the next body, where he continues to struggle for existence. Okay, text 9. Here the construction of the body is described. Shrotram Shakshu Sparsanam Sham Rasanam Granam Ivacham Adistaya Manashayam Vishyan Upashivate. Translation. Living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects that in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that our original spiritual consciousness is pure, like pure water. But if you mix a certain color with the water changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure, because the spirit soul is pure. But consciousness is changed according to the association with the material qualities, with the material modes. But this change, that's not our real consciousness. That's illusory consciousness, bodily consciousness. Our real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. That's our real consciousness. If this Krishna consciousness becomes changed, adulterated by some type of material mentality, then in the next life you will get a corresponding body. And choice enough. 8,400,000 species of life, according to the Vedas. So yeah, we can see here so many bodies you can get here. Although consciousness is originally pure, it is adulterated by association of the material qualities. Thus, one gets a corresponding body. That so many bodies. So this is the description of the transmigration of the soul in 2 verses. But we hear that, but do we understand it? But is a qualification to really understand this. But it's explained in text 10. Ukramantam sthitam vapi unjanam vagunam pitam vimudanam pashanti jnana chakshusam. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body He enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature, but one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. So in the previous verses, we have understood how Krishna, as a civil in the heart, perceives our consciousness as air-carrying aromas. We smell the aromas. He knows our consciousness. But this consciousness, we have learned in verse 9, is originally pure like water, but it has become adulterated. So that's understanding. But can we see the world through that vision? What will change in our life? Do you want still to produce bodies? That's the question. That requires Shastra Sakshu. During our life, we should learn to see through these words of Krishna. Shastra, Sakshu, seeing. And so, verse 10 says, the foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body. They cannot practice this Shastra Sakshu. Nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all of this. So, Srila Prabhupada in the purport stresses this word, jnana chakshusam. So, these are the last verses, Sanskrit words of the first, pashanti, seeing, jnana chakshusam, with the eyes of transcendental knowledge. Jnana chakshusam. Srila Prabhupada writes, this requires a great amount of knowledge understood from Bhagavad Gita and similar literatures heard from a bona fide spiritual master to understand how this works. But those who are not trained in this knowledge, they cannot understand this, although they may try. Therefore, we need to develop spiritual knowledge and first understand this knowledge from chapter 13, how the spirit is different from the body. And the body is changing. So a person in such knowledge can understand how a conditioned living entity is suffering in this material existence. And his suffering begins with trying to fulfill material desires. It starts with cultivating these material desires already. But they should come out of it. And in the last three lines of this purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks about this mood and mission. That mood and mission is also what Srila Prabhupada wants us to do. That how we can help him in his mission. And that is a way to get his mercy. And develop these qualities, like this quality of Shastra Sakshu. Srila Prabhupada writes, therefore, those who are highly developed in Krishna consciousness try their best to give this knowledge to the people in general, for their conditional life is very much troublesome. They should come out of it. and be Krishna conscious and liberate themselves to transfer to the spiritual world. So they should do their best to give this knowledge to the people in general. That's Srila Prabhupada's desire and service he gives for us. And now is text 10, person trained in knowledge. See further. Verse 10. So a person trained in knowledge understand the process of transmigration, but a foolish person bewildered by lust cannot see. Because a devotee sees the suffering of the foolish conditioned souls, he wants to enlighten them, and thus freeing them from repeated birth and death. Now we go to text 11. 11. Yatanto yoginashenam pasyant atmani avashtitam. Yatanto pyakritatmano nainam pasyant ashetasam. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those whose mind are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, although they may try. Although they may try. So Srila Prabhupada makes this point in the purport. Today there are many so-called yogis and associations of yogis, but they are actually blind in a matter of self-realization. What is self-realization? Self-realization means realizing yourself as a servant of Krishna and thereby engaging in devotional service. It's not sufficient to know that you are spirit, not this body. That's halfway knowledge. No, then you must act on the spirit soul, and that is self-realization. And so they are blind. They don't understand that they are part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, need in their pure consciousness that they need to be connected with Krishna. That Krishna consciousness connects us with Krishna. They don't see that. They cannot, and those who, if you are not self-realized, or have no knowledge of self-realization, such people cannot understand the process of transmigration of the soul. Only the Bhakti yogas, those engaged in pure devotional service to Krishna, can understand what is taking place. So this knowledge of Krishna consciousness must change our perspective, our behavior, and must internalize that, realize it. Now we are going to text 12. Yadaditya gadam tejo jagat pasayate kilam yashanramasi yachachnam tat tejo viddimanakam. The splendor of the sun which dissipates the darkness of this whole world comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. Now Krishna starts to explain how we can see him and become attracted to him. Because that's the first step, to become attracted to Krishna. So this is text 12, there in the purport. Srila Prabhupada writes, but one can begin to be established in knowledge by understanding what the Lord explains here. So that's the beginning. By that, we must understand that the splendor of electricity or fire are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the living entities are essentially part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And he is giving here with the hint how they can come back to Godhead, back to home. Further in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, therefore sunrise, fire and moonlight are so pleasing to the living entities. Without their help, the living entity can live. No living entity can live. So if one can understand that the light and the splendor of the sun, moon, fire are emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, then once Krishna consciousness will begin. By the moonshine, all the vegetables are nourished. So, what Srila Prabhupada explains here is that without the Lord's mercy, there cannot be a sun, there cannot be a moon, there cannot be fire, there cannot be light. So that are some thoughts that are meant to provoke our Krishna consciousness, to ignite our Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. So, go back to the slides. Yeah. So the living entity, they depend on the sun, moon, and fire for their existence. By appreciating how the sun, moon, and fire are emanating from Krishna, once Krishna consciousness begins. Now, text 13 and 14. So, Lord Krishna will give other examples how we can become Krishna conscious. How to start. 13. Gamma Vishya Sabotani Tarayam Yaham Ochatam Ushnamisha Sathi Sarva Samobhodva Rasamatmakam. I enter into each planet, and by my mercy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of all vegetables. The planets remain in orbit by the mercy of the Lord. And the moon supplies the juice of life to all vegetables. Interesting, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that he compares it to the soul and the body. when the spirit soul is there, a living man can float on the water, but when the living spark is out of the body, and the body is dead, the body sinks. Interesting. Similarly, all the planets are floating in space is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is what makes the planet float in space. And due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Human society is working, living comfortably, and enjoying food. It's due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. So this helps the Shastra Shakshu how to see Krishna through the light of the moon, the light of the sun, fire, and so on. So, let's see for slides. Yeah. As Paramatma, the Lord enters the planets, the universe, the living entity, and thus sustaining everything because of his presence within the moon. Everything becomes palatable. Text 14. Aham Vaishvana Bhutva Praninam Deyam Ashvita Pranapana Samayukta Pachamyanam Chaturvidam. I'm the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the four kinds of foodstuffs. So Krishna, he not only creates the food for us, it shows on the earth, but also digests it. He does it all. Interesting. So the fire is representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada writes. Brahman is situated in the form of fire within the stomach and is digesting all kinds of foodstuff. The living entity is not independent in the eating process, not independent. You eat, and whether you digest or not, it's not under your control. You don't digest, you are in trouble. It depends on Vaishnava. The Lord is Vaishvanar. Yes. He. What's the translation here? Vaishvanara. My plenary portion of the digestive fires. Krishna says my plenary portion. So if you digest, you know that the super soul is doing that. You can perceive the super soul. If you see light and fire, you know where it comes from. When you eat and it's very tasty, that taste is given by the moon, which that potency is Krishna's potency. So we can start to perceive Krishna in this world through these aspects. But then Krishna speaks directly as being the super soul in 15. But first, go back to our slides. 14. Yes, Krishna not only creates the food of our bodies required to live, he also digests it after we have eaten. Hare Krishna. 15. 15. Sarvasya sam vidishani vishto matash matiryanam apohanam cha Vailaisya sarver ameva vidyo vedanda krit vidavittivachaham. I'm seated in everyone's heart, and for me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta and the knower of the Vedas. Here, Krishna speaks about the Vedas. This is one of the most quoted verses of Bhagavad Gita by Srila Prabhupada. The Prabhupada writes, the living entity forgets everything of his past life, but he has to act according to the directions of the Supreme Lord, who is witness to all his work. So we forget. Krishna does not forget. He knows our actions in detail. He will give the reactions. He is the witness to all our work. That, was it? Yeah. Vedas give the right direction to people so that they can properly mold their lives and come back to Godhead, back to home. The Vedas offer knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And Krishna, in his incarnation as Vyasadeva, is compiler of Vedanta Sutra. So Krishna gives us the Vedas so that we can go back to Godhead. And to go back to Godhead, we heard before, Janma Karma Samedvam Yom Evete Tatvata Tyaktvam Punarsham Amitsvaranam. It is Sorana. If you know me, my transcendental activities and pastimes, you don't take perfect care in this world. So knowing, we can know Krishna by the Vedas. That, And then we heard that the Lord gives knowledge, forgetfulness, knowledge, and remembrance. So the Lord gives intelligence to the conditioned soul to renew his work where he ended in last life. So not only does a living entity enjoy or suffer in this world according to the dictation from the Supreme Lord situated locally in the heart, but he receives opportunity to understand the Vedas for him. So yes. Why do you see present the Vedic knowledge for understanding? Because a living entity individually needs to understand. That's our need. We need to understand our position, Krishna's position. And we need to understand our duty of serving the Supreme Lord. Understanding what are spiritual activities. The activity of the soul proper. By performance of Vedic rituals, discussion of the Vedic philosophy and worship of the Lord in devotional service is attained. Therefore, the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna. The Vedas give us direction by which to understand Krishna and the process of realizing him. Yes. In this verse, the purpose of the Vedas, the understanding of the Vedas, and the goal of the Vedas are clearly defined. So we're going to the slides. So the Supreme Lord, this is a summary of what we just said. The Supreme Lord, who exists as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, also expands in the form of the incarnation of the Vedas as Paramatma and Bhagavan. He reminds us of our past deeds, gives us intelligence to work, and makes us forget our past lives. He gives knowledge in the Vedas how to live in this world, to make progress on the path back to Godhead. By studying Vedic literature, one can understand this relationship with the Supreme Lord. By performing the different processes, one can approach him, and at the end, one can attain the supreme goal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is what the Vedas gives to us. Three things. It gives us Sambandhagyan first. The first book of Vedanta book, Sutra. There are 4 books in Vedanta, Sutra, the Brahma Sutras. The first book is about Sambandhagyan, knowledge who Krishna is, knowledge who we are, and knowledge what our relationship with Krishna is. The second and the third book of the Vedanta Sutras speaks about Abhidheya, how to act in that relationship. And then in the fourth book is Prayojan, the goal. So Krishna is the goal of the Vedas, but we will hear later that Krishna refers to the Vedanta Sutra as authority. But, yeah, we heard that before. Krishna quotes Vedanta Sutra as the authority. I think it was in... Good. Are there any questions on this first part, please? Of course, in these verses here. Yes, please.
Yes, I have a question.
Please.
It's related to these verses, and it's just on I guess the concept of, if all souls are, like were devotees at one time in the spiritual world, like why this complex, system of, the modes of material nature that are acting on the soul, and it's like, what's the I know like the purpose is to come back home, back to Godhead, but like what's the purpose of, like the modes of material nature and these things acting on the soul? And then it's like, like in this life, it seems like, people think that like a baby is so pure and things like that. But from what, I heard, it's like you aren't even really pure when you're coming out of the womb because of, like your past life and the karma that you get and things like that. So it's like, like that was just something I got out of that was like even like in this life when you're born as a baby, like as a child, people think that children are so pure, like you don't even really start with that purity, because of your past lives and things like that.
Yes, that's true. We are born in this material world, which consists of the three modes of material nature. But why are we thrown into it? That first, who has organized this system? It's Krishna. He does not want us to have this separatist mentality, to be the controller ourselves of things, that and the enjoyer. That's not our position. That it's trying to get hold of the property of someone else. Everything belongs to Krishna, not to us. That it's not our position. And if you try to get hold of the property of others, you are punishable by law, by the laws of God. These three modes is the laws of God. Nothing you can do about it. When you come in this world, you want to enjoy, you will suffer. These are the laws of God. That because Krishna wants us to convince us to give up this separatist mentality. That and as long as our conscience is disconnected from Krishna, we are responsible for our actions and will create new bodies and so on. And why is that? It's Krishna's will. And that's the point. Nothing more to say about that, and nothing we can do about it. But this law of karma is the only explanation why our people suffer. Why people suffer. If we are born equally and we suffer unequally, what's the cause? It's karma. It's our own activities from the past. It doesn't make sense. This makes sense. All the other theologies doesn't make much sense. This is scientific. You get what you deserve, really. But we can get out of it. That we can again agree to connect with Krishna. But we are not obliged. One can take purified consciousness or continue rotting in this material world. Up to us. That's what I could say about it. Hare Krishna. Good, with your permission, we can go to the next section. Let's stop the recording.